everyone. You're listening to the Rachel Maves Podcast, and I'm Rachel Maves, your host. Today, we are talking to Dr. Caprice Young, the Chief Executive Officer and Superintendent of Navigator Schools. Dr. Young is a seasoned executive and superintendent with extensive leadership experience. She is the former National Superintendent of Lifelong Learning, overseeing 49,000 students across 5 states, and has served as CEO of a Fortune 500 subsidiary. She has received numerous awards, including the Coral Crystal Eagle for Excellence in Public Service and California State University Los Angeles Educator of the Year. Dr. Young has served on multiple boards and was president of the LAUSD, or Los Angeles Unified School District Board of Education. Caprice, thank you for joining me for today. I'm super excited about our conversation together.
My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure.
So we always start out the podcast with what I feel like is the most human part of everything around your story and pathway and career into education. Why choose education?
I wasn't supposed to. I grew up in a huge family. My biological parents were foster parents. So I have 36 brothers and sisters. Not all at once. Not all at once.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was in the host foster family. I stayed put and everybody else came and went, and sometimes came back again. So I was blessed with 36 brothers and sisters, and that I stopped counting after I moved out. So my parents, who are saints, have continued fostering kids even since then. So growing up in a family like that, I was awake to the diversity of humanity from the very beginning. And my mom was a special education teacher. My dad was a juvenile probation officer who became a minister. And I went off to college thinking I was going to have a career in policy or something in government, but really focused on policy and making a difference in the world. And after 10 years in public finance and technology, I got elected to the school board in Los Angeles. Naively thinking, oh, I'll just serve on the school board in Los Angeles. We'll fix public education, and then I'll go back to IBM.
And not just any school board, but the Los Angeles Unified School Board. I mean, for people who are listening that are educators, tell us the size of that district.
Well, it's a lot smaller now than it was then. This was 1999 through 2003. And we had 750,000 K-12 students and another 40,000 pre-K, and then another 400,000 adult school students. And the laws have changed a lot since then, as that was 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago. So the adult school responsibilities are no longer part of the school district's responsibility to that. But the school district as a whole is now under 500,000. And that has everything to do with, declining enrollment and how we as a society have failed to plan for growth effectively. It was supposed to be over 1 million by now, and Los Angeles failed to build housing and became unaffordable, and families have moved out. Then there was a small matter of a 2008 recession, and I left the board in 2003. I went on to start the California Charter Schools Association. We founded that in 2003, and now there are about 200 charter schools in Los Angeles as well. And families have voted with their feet around what they want for their kids, and when I served on the board, I realized that this could be a way to make a real difference in the world. And I fell in love, frankly, with working with educators. Education people are, amazing. They're idealistic and cynical all at once. And determined to make the world better for kids. And that's true whether they're traditional public schools or charter public schools.
Yeah.
So how could I not do this? It found me, and I am a willing participant.
And you never looked back.
Oh, I look back all the time. Who doesn't? And I see my friends who are in technology, and they're doing amazing things in technology, things that are revolutionary and groundbreaking. But I would describe them as morally neutral. And I think that we can be revolutionary and groundbreaking in education in a way that's morally good, that's net positive. And I love working for IBM. It's a great company, and doing in the 90s, doing some really revolutionary work. But at the end of the day, I was still adding to the bottom line at Toyota or insurance companies, or and what I really want to be doing is working with our kids in our communities. And it's just, for me, this is selfish. I love this work, and I love the people who choose it.
Yeah. It's not often that you hear a story of a board member that then is like, wow, I was bit by the bug, and now I want to go and be a practitioner and lead this work in schools. And I love what you said, that you fell in love with educators. Do you remember either a point in time or story from that time that really highlights that moment for you where it just clicked of, I want to do this in a different way?
Well, part of the reason why generally people don't go from being a board member to having a career in education is that generally you're the board member at the end of it.
Yeah.
And I was elected in the school board in my early 30s. I was 32, a 2-year-old kid. And so it was the beginning of my career, not the end of my career.
Yeah.
And, it was sort of like, well, okay, I can volunteer a lot by serving on the PTA, or I can just run for the school board and meet that much look at it. So that was kind of it. So, but that's part of the reason why it's an unusual path. It has less to do just with getting bitten and more to do with the fact that I was so young when I started. Now, since then, we've had several people elected to the school board in Los Angeles in their early 30s, and so it's not so uncommon anymore. But definitely there was a moment. And I'll tell you what it was. It was, so my youngest daughter, she was 3 when I got elected, and so she started kindergarten in our local public school while I was president of the school board. And one day she brought home from school a note. Actually, it was one of the first days that she was at school as a brand new kindergarten. She brought home a note from the 4th grade teacher, who was the union chapter chair at the time. And she said to me, "Mommy, I didn't get in trouble. I don't even know this teacher." And she told me to give me this letter. So I opened up the letter, and it was the union chapter chair telling me how I was supposed to vote at the board meeting. And I was concerned about them using my daughter as a messenger. I went to the school site and I explained that I really wanted an alarm when I was on the school site, not a board member, but that they were welcome to call me directly anytime about policy stuff. And I really ended up hitting it off positively with that teacher, the 4th grade teacher. And as I was on the school board in 1999, we were, between 99 and 2003, we were really rolling out an intense phonics-based program. And there's 3 different curricula that the schools got to choose from. West Free, Success for All, and Open Court. And my daughter's teachers were phenomenal teachers who had the kids writing incomplete paragraphs by the end of kindergarten in the lab.
Wow.
And I got to sit with them as we were talking about the rollout of this curriculum. And I could hear the depth of their interest and concern and ideas around how to make it successful. And they were looking at it from a very kid-oriented perspective. And they were thinking about the whole range of abilities, from kids who were highly gifted, kids who had special education needs, kids who were multilingual learners, kids who had learning deficiencies that come from poverty, and wanting to make it successful for all kids. And A lot of people think that teaching is easy, and it's just not. It is one of the hardest things that we can do. And the professionals who are doing it are some of the most impressive people I've ever met. And
Yeah.
and they're fun to hang out with too. So, so that was definitely a moment. But there was another moment when, as school board president, it wasn't so much a moment as an accumulation of moments, and that was when I would go to visit traditional public schools. A lot of times what I would hear from school side administrators were things like, the budget is blah, 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 the policy is blah, 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 everything was wrong, bad, and horrible. And I'd go to charter school site and they would be like, you got to come see my robotics lab, and positive and up. And so that for me was kind of a shift from traditional public schools to charter schools, because I wanted to be able to lead in an environment where people are excited about the work. And I think my biggest regret is that, once you move into the charter school world, it's almost impossible to go back to the traditional public school world as a leader, just because of the politics. It's not because you can't, it's just because of the politics. And, I have always fantasized about wanting to become a traditional school district superintendent so that I could bring that kind of positivity, and I would describe it as yesness, being able to say yes into a context where it's almost always the answer is no.
Yeah. I love that, Caprice. I don't know what that trajectory looks like or if that will ever be a check mark for you, but yeah, absolutely. To be able to have that type of mentality and bring a little bit of fun into that space in a different way, for sure. As we think about just where education has been in the last 4 years and where we're headed after the pandemic, what, from your lens and this vast experience in education, what keeps you up at night?
Well, my day job is that I'm the superintendent of Navigator schools, which are 4 amazing schools on the central coast of California. Watsonville, Gilroy, Hollister, and Hayward. Hayward is our one urban school site. The other two are in agricultural towns, and our students are predominantly the sons and daughters of people who work in the ag industry. And our schools are head and shoulders above other schools in terms of their academic. It's stark, actually. The traditional public schools around us serving very similar student bodies, if not identical student bodies. They're scoring 10 to 20% of their kids proficient in, which is, from my perspective, absolutely heartbreaking. And our schools are 50 to 70% proficient in English, which honestly is still heartbreaking for me. So what keeps me up at night is, how do we change what we're doing to reach all of the students, all of them? And one of the things that I think that we have to really work on as a sector or a movement is, or not how do we make small changes, but how do we make big changes? How do we use time much more efficiently, for example?
Yes.
How do we find ways to unlock ourselves from these bands of, oh, you're in first grade, you have to do these things over this period of time, and if you don't, we're going to move you up to second grade anyway, even though it's going to increase your failure because you didn't learn the things that you needed to move into that band. Yeah, we have to be able to break free from those traditional structures, because what that's leading to is 30% of our kids living 7th and 8th grade not able to learn in the classrooms that they're sitting in, and becoming cynical and having it be a big waste of their time and everybody else's, right? So the thing that I worry about and think about, sometimes I worry about, yes, I worry about it, but it's like the big noodle on this is, how do we break out of that so that we can meet every student's need? And that requires changes in the regulatory environment that we live in. One of the areas of charter school growth that I'm so excited about is the growth in the non-classroom public school. Non-classroom based public schools, it comes to California. People think that means online learning. And in some cases it does. But what it actually means is that those schools get paid based on the work that the students do, as opposed to how long their butt's been in the chair. And it's that kind of fiscal structure that's going to allow us to have the freedom or flexibility to really meet the needs of every single kid. And as I'm leading right now, I'm leading classroom-based schools, and that structural calcification is a real challenge. So my team is looking at how do we do it better.
I love that. I want to just quickly, before we go into like practical next steps, like the one that you just gave, I do want to come back to some of your data and what you're seeing. I mean, that's pretty significant to look at where you guys are currently performing. And yes, I understand like it's still not good enough and you're striving to continue to hit higher proficiency marks, but it's significantly outperforming the other schools in the area. What do you attribute to the success that you're seeing?
Oh, it's hard, smart work on the part of our educators. So there is no minute during the day that hasn't been thought through by our academic team. And they are very, very focused on how do we support the teachers in being as effective as possible. So a lot of thought goes into the curriculum, which curriculum we have and how it's implemented. And we also do a lot of training and development of our teachers. And it's not just the week before school starts at the beginning of the year and then, 2 hours once a week throughout the year. It's that we staff our school sites so that we can have ongoing coaching on an ongoing basis with all of our teachers. And then in addition to that, we have a small group model. When we teach K through 5th grade, for example, we have all of the kids are in centers. So 30 kids per class, and 10 kids are working directly with the teacher, getting direct instruction for part of the time. 10 kids are working with a small group instructor who is focused on helping them practice more skills that they've learned. And then 10 kids are focused on their iPad doing hybrid that allows them to also practice, but also extend their learning, but specifically at their level, right? So not everybody is studying the same thing at the same time. And then also using data, and frankly, that data that we're able to parse education, we are able to change those small groups on an ongoing basis so that the teacher can actually have the right kids in the right group focusing on what those kids need specifically. And that use of data is extraordinarily important to our model. So, just to kind of to summarize, so really thoughtful selection of curriculum and the tools that teachers have, but also making sure that the teacher has the coaching and support that they need to be successful. And then also being using data comes into it. At the middle school level, we're able to leverage our kids too. So we have something called the squads model, which I'd love to go into detail and really want to talk squad. But the squads model is really all about the students teaching each other. And it works brilliantly. It really works brilliantly, especially with middle school students who are inclined to want to talk to each other anyway. And so by using the squads model, we're able to really leverage their energy for each other, and teach them how to be active participants and learners in the group setting. It's different from like maybe when you and I went to school where the teacher would say, okay, you four go off and you do this group project.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
One person does all the work and the other three screw around, and the one person who does all the work angry because they're having to do all the work, but they don't want to, get a bad grade. And it's not like that. These are squads where each person has a role, and plays that role and contributes in positive, meaningful ways to the group learning. So, it's a combination of things. And I think that's true with every school that really excels. It's not like there's some
That's silver
spice
bullet.
that you
Yeah.
sprinkle on it and therefore it's successful. It's everybody working hard on all the different aspects of what has to happen. I mean, I just talked about the academic program, but I could easily have talked about what we're doing on social emotional stuff, which is what makes it possible for the classroom to work. I could easily have talked about how we're engaging parents, which means that, after school and in non-school time, the parents are serving as the primary educators. Our special education program is completely full inclusion. Believe me, that ain't easy after the pandemic. So, so I think everybody wants it to be, if you just do this one thing, everything will be perfect. And the fact is, there's so much more to it than that. And it's hard. Yeah, it's hard. And I think that what we have to, as a society, recognize that great schools don't just happen. It takes a ton of work.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And what stands out to me, Caprice, and I actually want to follow up with you after this because I feel like we actually need to do like a webinar series with you around some of these different components and highlighting it, because you've taken what we know in research is all of this best practice, but you've implemented it in a way that leads to success and with fidelity. So like, just as one clear example, I've heard of centers before and this small group instruction, but the component that I often see missing in that is this data-driven look on a regular basis where you're continually changing those groups based on the progress that you see. Because there are kids that are going to excel in one area that may need support later on in something else, that no child is fantastic at everything, but they're often stagnant. It often becomes like the groups and the labels, and then there's never any movement within those for that differentiation based on what the need is in the moment. And that's ideal, but not often put into practice. So it's just, amazing the work that you guys are doing.
We are able to do that because, first of all, we do formative assessment 5 times a year. That sounds like a lot, but we do it. We also use a test that is not an overwhelming test. These STAR as opposed to NWE, so it's not as difficult to administer. So we have 4 units a year. We're getting pre and post data for each of those. But then also, because the kids are working every single day on their hybrid laptop, iPad systems, whether it's ST Math or Lexia Reading, we're getting constant data, not just on how the kids are doing generally, but how they're doing on every single learning standard. So when a teacher picks, this is going to be my direct instruction group for this week, he is picking students who are all working on the same thing. As opposed to, having small for the sake of small. It's small for the sake of differentiation. And
that's right.
And that's the key. And the more precise you can be around that differentiation, the more success, that you're going to have.
Yeah. Yeah. As you look at all the things that you're doing right now, because it's amazing, and then thinking about what we just talked about, some of the things that are keeping you up at night, where do you see as some of the next steps for you guys that are just right ahead of you that you'd like to move forward or begin to implement?
Well, I can tell you that actually what my staff will tell you is stop giving us new stuff. Now, if I came back to them and said, guess what? You're all going to get a week in Fiji. It's another thing you're going to have to do. They would say, no, please don't send us to Fiji. anything but Fiji. And because this is true for everything. When I was in the tech industry, it was all about focus. And then that's equally true in education.
That's
one of the big things that we are doing this year is making sure that all of our data systems talk to talk to our Parsec main system so that I don't have people having to input data in 1,000 different systems. And I say the word 1,000 advisedly, but when we counted, we had more than 200 systems that were collecting data on our kit. And we had to streamline and focus so that data could be useful. And I think that having that data all in one system in a thoughtful, integrated way allows us to ask and answer questions that are vital. It also means that that every system that our students interact with directly, my teachers don't have to upload that data or retype that data over and over.
That's pretty.
And our goal is for our teachers to interact with each piece of data no more than one time, and ideally less than one time, because the system should be able to talk to each other. And while this might seem super, super basic, and it is super basic, getting this together is what's going to allow us to be able to really use AI in the future.
Yeah, that's right.
A year from now, I don't want to have to ask the Parsec system, tell me which of my 50 kids who are English language learners need focus on their fraction. I want the system to tell me, hey, Caprice, these 50 kids who are English language learners need focus on their fraction.
Yes,
that's right. That's where we want it to be going, and I do think we're going to get there, and I think it can make our lives a whole lot easier. We're just at this point now where it's still pretty kludgy, and but when we get there, I think it's going to be brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. And it sounds like you've been talking to Eugene, because this is like the ultimate goal and vision of everything that we're working towards. But I think
that's
what you said
is Eugene and a former IBM together in the same room.
Yeah, 100%. When he said he was jumping in, I was like, oh boy, we're in for a ride here. But I think what you said, and this is important for people who aren't in education, that are listeners, to understand, because we talk about in improvement work, every system is designed to get the results that it gets. And in education, one of the biggest barriers is exactly that. You can have 200 different systems that carry different data, and we don't have this repository in one place where it visualizes it in a meaningful way and allows easy access for the user to make understanding and analysis of it. And so I think what you're identifying, as I think about, and you brought up at the beginning, what are those ways in which we can reduce time? That's where I see technology and AI enhancing and accelerating the profession, not taking it over, not taking the role of teachers, but really what are those places that right now are burdensome, that require us to spend so much of our time and effort that should be with kids. And that's where I see us getting close to being able to close that gap, which is just super exciting to me.
Yeah, no, and our teachers at Navigator and our administrators, site leaders, last year were spending hours and hours and hours of time just sorting and sifting through data and uploading things into Google Sheets, and then turning the Google Sheets into Excel that turned into PowerPoint. And it was such a waste of time, a massive waste of time, when we can have a system that takes the data and answers your questions. And there's work up front to get there. But we have brilliant educators, and I want them to be able to maximize it. And that's what this is going to get us. And that's what's exciting to me.
Yeah. So final question, then we'll wrap up, Caprice. What question in education are we not asking that we really should be right now?
Well, a lot of questions. A lot of questions. As I mentioned, I kind of have a backwards career in that I started on the policy end of education, and now I get to do the education every day, which I love. But from a policy perspective, one of the things that a lot of people don't understand about education is that education is created by state legislators. And
that's right.
And when what happens is a state legislator will find out oh, this school in my district has a whole bunch of kids whose parents are in hourly wage type jobs, and they have to work from, say, 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. And so I'm going to pass a law that says that we're going to spend $30 million to create before school care, feeding, and homework rooms for kids between the time of 5 a.m. when their parents have to drop them off to get to work, and 7:30 or 8 when school starts. So it's all based on these like little niche things that
That's right.
and it wouldn't be happening that way if on the school sites our educators and leaders were actually thinking through their needs and meeting those needs. And what that leads to is education systems that are wildly micromanaged at the state level, based on things that are not research driven, research thought through, or systemic. And then on the other hand, there are times when the political ideologies of the day are getting in the way of implementing research proven programs. And the truth is that you shouldn't have to have the state legislature come in and say, wow, why don't you use a reading program that actually works for teaching kids to read? Schools ought to be able to self-diagnose that and do it. But the whole system is so calcified and screwed up because of the way that the way that it is managed. It's broken because of that. And that's why charter schools are so important. Because as long as we can maintain the flexibility to do what we know is right for kids, and then prove through testing and other outcomes that we've been right about that, the more students are going to get a great education. And I just wish that we could give that gift of flexibility and accountability to every public school, traditional or charter.
Yeah, I love it. Caprice, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. I really am going to follow up because I want to pick your brain a lot more in some of what we talked about today, but I appreciate your leadership and the work that you're doing, and I'm so glad that you fell into education.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Lucky for me, right?
That's right.
Take care.
Thanks.